seaweed because we hear about how it's contaminated from Fukushima and it's got radioactive waste in it, and also the other wonderful things that are going on with seaweed. So where do you want to start, Lisa?
Well, definitely, I think, Fukushima is very prevalent in people's minds now because it should be. And basically, they have found that the tuna nearby to Fukushima has much higher radiation levels than is acceptable. And of course, all sea vegetables should be considered from that area now as suspect if you're concerned about health in general. But basically, seaweed is harvested all over the world. There are 160 different species that are consumed around the world, and there's multiple different places to source from. So we're quite cautious, obviously, where we eat our seaweed from or choose to source it. You do have to consider that. So basically, if there's a thought that a lot of predominantly actually, seaweed is harvested in the region of China, Korea, Japan. And the way that the ocean currents run, apparently, is west to east. So it is considered to be less of an issue if it's coming sort of China way. It depends how radical you are about your health. We are always concerned about that sort of thing. Now, there are stopgaps in place with Australian quarantine, and of course, seaweed is being looked at very heavily now as it enters the country from anywhere in the world, as it well should be. And so people should know that it's not also, there's also this, it's sort of a misconception that all products entering the country from around the world are irradiated. If that was the case, we'd have a queue in the ports out to New Zealand, pretty much. So that's not true at all. It's products that are either contaminated, for example, found to have worms or larvae, etc. Or if there are other products, wood products, for example, that could be. But there are also organic options for that. But so people shouldn't be concerned that it's automatically being irradiated when it enters the country, which is actually mutually exclusive to certified organic. So if you're buying a certified organic product, it's not allowed to be irradiated. So there's confidence in that.
Another reason to just decide to go organic.
Yes.
So Lisa, let's get on to the seaweeds. There's some pretty special components of some seaweeds. So like fucoidan. Can you tell us, I'm just going to spell it for people, it's Fucoidan. Where do you find fucoidan?
Fucoidan is primarily found in, for example, wakame seaweed, and Australia is actually a pioneer in the research into the properties of fucoidan. There has been quite a bit of work done down in Tasmania, and they actually extract this property from the bulbous stem of the growing wakame. Scuba divers go down, they harvest the wakame, and it was part of a project of a feral weed eradication project that the government instituted.
So the wakame was a bit out of control?
Well, it had actually been introduced from the bilges of overseas ships. So it was a phenomenal project. In fact, they found a use for it. We're able to use the leaves of wakame as a food, which has a long history of nutritional foods. And they're harvesting the fucoidan. The fucoidan has incredible properties of immune stimulation, anticoagulant, and in fact, they've done double-blind sort of medical testing to show that it's incredibly effective against the herpes virus with no side effects. It's also being trialed now for.
I bet a lot of people just turned the radio up then.
Yeah.
What did she just say?
Well, it's entirely true, and also it's being trialed currently in osteoarthritis.
Oh, wow.
Because it's with its anti-inflammatory properties. It's extremely beneficial for people that are struggling with that ailment.
So if we use wakame in our day-to-day lives and use it as food as medicine at home and just add it to our foods, are we still getting fucoidan?
Yeah, fucoidan is actually also in products like kelp and other seaweeds. Of course, it's concentrated in the stem, which is too bulbous and fibrous for us to really enjoy eating. But it is in the leaves, probably 10 to the level of 10%, as opposed to the 100%.
So where do you get? I'm a believer in eating the whole. The whole plant. Where would you get fucoidan? Are they making it into a drug or into a supplement? Or?
Yeah, they're extracting it. It's actually a very high tech process that they're extracting it, and it is now being used in supplements, particularly in Europe. They're looking at, like I say, with the medical industry. There's lots of different applications, and the cosmetic industry is using it as well to apply to skin and, of course, with the anti-inflammatory products and whatnot.
The Pure and Green Organics, which is actually the company I'm ambassador for, she has it in a skincare, in a mask, and I thought she said it was for sunspots and age spots.
That's right. Yeah, that's one of the...
whacking it on every day.
Well, it has incredible properties, and that is definitely one of them. There are multiple different properties too.
How exciting! It's really exciting. So where do you at Power Superfoods source your seaweeds?
Well, we're very, very careful.
Yes, good.
Because we basically don't want to eat anything that we wouldn't want to eat with our organic selves. So we source our dulse and our natural nori from the eastern maritime provinces of Canada, which are quite remote and underpopulated. And it's a phenomenal job opportunity for there because it's a low carbon impact industry. There's a lot of whales out there, so they're literally harvesting by rowboat, and so they're not. They're not
so romantic, isn't it? There's no fish attracting devices or GPSs.
There's no threat of the whales being run over by shipping containers and whatnot, but no, it is definitely a concern. So that's one area that we harvest from, and as I mentioned, in Tasmania, our wakame is harvested from the clear waters in the southeast.
Lisa, we're going to have a little break, and you put some goodies in to give away today, didn't you?
I did.
I haven't even had a look yet. I raced in, I saw this, and when I see you in a minute, what's in those little bags?
Well, I've brought, with Valentine's Day, just a couple days away, I've brought in a little chocolate box of love. And
what is that? Do we have? Maybe I'll keep that. A little chocolate box of love.
Well, it's basically raw cacao products for giveaway, including goji snack blend with cacao nibs and some cacao powder and delicious cacao crunch, which is basically cacao nibs rolled in liquid cacao and then wrapped in panela, which is it's just incredible.
Panela is a whole complex sugar, by the way, that is heavenly, right. Also called rapadura.
Yeah, it's delicious.
So these little, it's a chocolate box of love.
Yes, for Valentine's.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I saw the box. It's pretty nice. So if you are a subscriber, give us a call, 6680 7999, and I might get Lisa to pull the winner of that at the end of our interview, which will be in about 20 minutes. But we'll just have a short break and we'll be back on Bay FM with the Healing Wave.
Looking to add high quality and affordable organic superfoods like goji, seaweeds, cacao, berries, low GI sweeteners and chia seed to your daily diet? Look no further than Power Superfoods for superior quality and service with a smile. New and innovative products launched regularly, fantastic value on bulk sizing, and great ingredient source for healthy recipes this summer. And like us on Facebook now for your chance to win healthy cookbooks using delicious superfoods. PowerSuperfoods.com, super sponsors of Bay FM.
Hey there, it's Matt from Future Classics. You know, being on Bay FM has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. It's been a total blast. So I have a question for you. Have you ever thought of having your own radio show?
My sister had a show on the radio, 2 hours of polka. It was quite good.
If you have a passion to put together a music program, news, current events, or even a specialty show, then I've got a great opportunity for you. Bay FM is now accepting program submissions for new presenters only.
This is for new presenters only.
People who would like to have their own show for the first time right here on Bay FM.
You'd have to.
We were talking about the effects of, a little bit on the effects of Fukushima. And now I want to ask Lisa, why should we eat seaweeds? I'm a big fan of seaweeds, and people just get, ew, because they think of the kelp washing up on the beach, I guess. But let's enlighten people and let them know the reasons why it's really invaluable to include them in your diet.
Yeah, well, seaweeds have been literally invaluable for many cultures around the world for centuries because if they had limited diets, say, for example, Scotland, Ireland, etc., during the harsh winters, or if they were on the island communities, etc., they would really rely on these nutrients because it is a nutrient-packed powerhouse. There's no other way to describe it. It's basically, seaweed is a combination of vitamins, minerals. There's even essential fatty acids in wakame, for example, soluble and insoluble fibers, and all sorts of strange and unique properties, including polysaccharides and different acids, amino acids, and so it's so dense that you really are basically in a very small amount, and it's low calorie. It's essentially zero fat, low calorie food, and there are even properties in. You often hear in Hollywood and whatnot, someone's on a seaweed diet. Well, that's because there's properties including something called fucoxanthin in wakamis and kelps that aid weight loss, basically.
So instead of being just on, I heard recently that Anne Hathaway ate kale and dust for her role in Les Miserables, which, isn't, kale's wonderful for sure, but it doesn't have all the properties that seaweed has. So really she could have been on a seaweed and dust diet.
Yeah, that's right.
And her skin would have been glowing.
Yeah, well, there are so many different properties. You have the salty taste, but it's not really just salt. Mm-hmm. It's a balanced chelated combination of sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, and all the trace elements, including selenium, which is a crucial element, one of the 5 what they call the anti-cancer elements, along with A, C, E, and zinc. Very important and quite difficult to get from our food on a very old continent that Australia is, and predominantly we need to source those from products from the sea.
And on that note, our country is old, so we have lost some of the minerals in our earth, and also because of conventional farming.
That's right.
And chemicals
topsoil loss, etc. Yeah.
So we've lost a lot of selenium. And what about an iodine?
That's exactly right. The Australian government, in fact, has highlighted that the iodine deficiency is an issue in this country and growing, and a lot of our farmland is not rich in iodine or even moderately rich. So we have to find other sources, and that's why they're looking at different foods being having these artificially added to these foods, etc. But there are a wide range of foods which you can naturally get iodine, but it is an important ingredient in our diet.
And people, they don't realise this about iodine. When I was a young girl, I knew this actually because my mother had an underactive thyroid, and she always said, I was brought up in casino and there was no seafood there. We never had seafood, and so it was my thyroid was underactive because of the iodine. So I was aware of this, and I remember when I was being interviewed a few years ago on something, and the interviewer said, well, we were talking about iodized salt, and I was saying, well, I don't agree with adding iodine to your salt. It's like adding fluoride to the water. I don't believe in mass medication. If you want to take it, take it. If you don't, then we should have the choice. And he was just scoffing at me and said, well, where else are we going to get iodine from? And I went, seaweed? Yeah. And he said, well, who eats seaweed? And I responded, well, probably 3/4 of the world's, or half the world's population does. We just aren't really, hip to it. But more and more we are, aren't we?
We need to be. It definitely is an issue. And if you look historically, there are whole parts of countries, including China and India, that were very far from the sea, had no access to iodine through their foods, and cretinism was a very widespread and prevalent problem until the introduction of, in that case, iodized salt. But it doesn't occur in countries that are eating it generally from the sea in some way, shape, or form. So it is an issue, and a lot of modern ailments today are actually, as you can be in some way, attributed to depressed thyroid function, and of course we know that the thyroid really relies on iodine. So there's all sorts of ailments, including unexplained weight gain, learning disabilities.
The radio just got turned up again everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. But hearing problems, ADHD, infertility, increased blood cholesterol, and reduced heart function. If that doesn't describe half our society right now, I don't know what does. So,
it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really an issue. And the Australian government has recognised that, but has not put forth seaweeds as a natural solution, unfortunately.
Well, step by step.
Yeah.
At least we can get these lovely products in Ziploc bags on our health food store shelf. When I used to run health food stores in my 30s, seaweed was a very slow mover. I would order wakame maybe every 6 months, and I'd be like, hey, everyone eat this, and this is what to do with it. But now it's becoming more and more popular.
Absolutely. And I definitely see, if I see a brand of ours on almost every shelf, it's the Sea Power brand. That, they may stock other products, but they certainly stock the Sea Power.
Good for you. Now, in front of me here, I've got some nori that's in flakes. So I'm going to talk to you after I finish with my interview with Lisa about what to do with them, and the Sea Power, which is the Dulse flakes. So the flakes are really easy to use, and so are the whole seaweeds as well, but we'll come back to that a bit later. So we've covered the iodine thing, and it's easy to get our thyroids in balance. What if you've got an overactive thyroid?
Well, I mean, you definitely have to consider, again, it's what are your dietary sources of iodine? And it's all about moderation, and it's really about eating from a wide range of foods, eating as naturally as possible so you don't compromise the function of your glands and organs. And, if you have a condition that needs to be monitored with your doctor through testing, etc., absolutely, that's the only intelligent way to go.
And just not cut a whole food group out or a whole mineral out of your diet.
Definitely. And again, it is a misconception that all seaweeds are hugely packed with iodine. That's not true at all. There's some that have more than others, so that can be easily researched.
I think the scandal with the soy milk a few years ago with kombu in it, and there was the class action against people having thyroid issues, and pregnant women, their thyroid was elevated and it never had been before, and they blamed the kombu, and it has scared a lot of people. Yeah,
there has to be, I think, some sort of balanced perspective on that. If we were, there was for example, I think predominantly it was reported that there was a woman who was breastfeeding, as you mentioned, and was eating kombu 3 times a day, from my understanding, etc., on a daily basis, and in essence sort of had overdose. Well, absolutely. But if we were to apply that to medical drugs or anything like that and withdraw an entire product because one person had overdosed, well, we would have no drugs, would we? So there does have to be some, I think, balanced approach, and I do understand why the government would do that in response to publicity, but in the long term, is that what's really best for the population, given that they recognize that there are
health benefits. And the same with hijiki. I remember being able to get hijiki a decade or so ago.
That's right.
Someone I think in Melbourne was eating 5 kilos, this is what I heard, a day, and he died, actually, and they went, "Oh, this is bad, no one's allowed to get hijiki anymore." And it's
again, a balanced perspective. I mean, there really has to be, I think if there's more understanding on the public's part about the benefits, then there would be more pressure to say, hey, wait a minute, that was extreme cases, and there are extreme cases in all things.
And less is more.
Yeah, less is more. And I mean, how much seaweed do most people really eat? It's a sprinkle on top of a stir fry or etc. It really has to be looked at as part, just in addition to the diet.
That's right. And we know how packed it is with nutrients. You don't need very much of it.
That's right. It has a very, very high nutrient to calorie ratio, which is what makes it phenomenal for us.
We'll be back after a short break.
Who's there?
I'm helping with a door-to-door survey in the street, and I wanted to ask you one question.
Hey, is this about coal seam gas mining in Byron Shire and Northern Rivers?
Yes.
Is this something about getting all the residents informed about how it will affect everybody?
Yes, so?
Aren't there special meetings being held for residents of Bangalow, Ocean Shores and Byron Bay in February to hear from special speakers about all this?
Yes, those meetings have been advertised.